What up guys, Supermel983 here bringing you another Supermel recommendations, and this is episode 15, and I know it's been like over a year since my last one, so yeah, I think I do need to get the ball rolling with this series again, because there are so many albums that I could talk about and want to talk about with you, so I thought, you know what, let's cry out the camera and do another video. It hasn't been that long since I recorded my last video, my updates and purchases, so I thought I'd crack out the camera again and do a Super Metal recommendations, try and keep the ball rolling with my videos. So I've got 5 releases, 5 of which I've been listening to quite a lot lately, and stuff that I've rekindled a kind of love for. So we've got 5 releases to go through, so let's crack on with it. So the first one we're going to be talking about is a band that I don't see many people talking about, and I can kind of see why, because the band went through a bit of a name change and their new name is Light the Torch, so you know exactly who I'm talking about. But yeah, I'm going to be talking about the debut album from the band Devil You Know, entitled The Beauty of Destruction. Now, Light the Torch's album is absolutely incredible, and I just need another album from those guys. It's been, I just need some more material. But yeah, Devil You Know, they brought out 2 albums, which is this one, and they brought out a one called Lay Bleed Red, which is this one right here, which is another fantastic album. But recently I decided, you know what, I've spanned that album quite a lot over the past few years, but I've kind of neglected this one a little bit, to be honest. And to be honest, when I first heard this album, I was really excited to listen to it, because obviously it contains Howard Jones, formerly of Killswitch Engage, handling the vocal duties. And, you know, if you're a fan of Killswitch Engage, I mean, there's a lot, it's a bit of a divide, like, oh, I'm a Howard guy or I'm a Jesse guy, but to me, I'm 50-50 on the both of them, because I think they're both exceptional vocalists, and they both brought their aim game when they were in the band. So when Howard parted ways, I was just praying that he would get into a new band and bring some absolute fire that he does with his vocal style. And then we got a debut album from Devil You Know entitled The Beauty of Destruction. And this album, it's kind of like a bit more of a melodic sort of take on modern groove metal sort of influence in there. There's a bit of metalcore influence in there, as you can imagine, but in general it's got a very captivating atmosphere, and the grooves on this album and the riffs are just absolutely incredibly well written, and the lead work is absolutely extraordinary, if you ask me. And the musicianship in general across this entire album, from the drum work to the guitar work, even the lead work, like as I said, is absolutely extraordinary. And the vocal performance, it's Howard being Howard and just bringing his ear game from his powerful, energetic screams to his very emotion and powerful singing all over this album. And from beginning to end, it captivates you. And I don't see a lot of people talking about the Devil You Know. Like, when the first dropped, it was like, Howard's got a new band, and then after that it just kind of died off a little bit. But I see a lot of people talking about Light the Torch, and quite respectfully so. But I see not many people talking about this, and I know they were forced to change their name to Light the Torch, and which is sad, but these 2 albums that they brought out were absolutely extraordinary, and this was a great start to the band's career. And if you haven't heard this album, make sure you do so. It has got the grit, it's got the catchiness, it's got the melody, it's got it all. Fantastic album to listen to and to jam out to, if you ask me. Next up, we're going to go into some more darker, more scary territory, in some black metal with Thantafaxith, I believe that's how it's pronounced, with Sacred White Noise. Now, this album was on my want list for the best part of a couple of years now, and I finally managed to get my hands on it. I don't know why I didn't pick it up before now, but man, this is one of the most scary, vicious, and ripping sounding black metal albums I have ever fucking heard. Like, over the past, let's say, the best part of a year, let's say, this has become one of my favourite black metal albums, and one of my go-to black metal albums, because the atmosphere on this album is just something to behold, man. It's quite scary, quite nightmarish to listen to, but in general, it is still a ripping black metal album. Like, black metal does create a lot of atmosphere, and this does create some scary atmosphere, but the riffs on here are very potent, and it just feels very gritty and very intense to listen to. Like, the overall production sounds a lot more thicker than a lot of black metal releases that I've heard, but in general, it is such a captivating listen, and I love listening to some really good black metal, and this one is definitely one of my go-tos if I'm in the mood for a black metal release. Like, I'll be looking through my collection, and I'll just be like, do I fancy some Dark Throne? Do I fancy some Burzum? Maybe some old school Behemoth? Dark Funeral, maybe? Watain? Nah, I'll go to Thanafaxis. Yeah, that's a hard name to pronounce. With Sacred White Noise. And I know they've brought out an EP as well, which I've never actually listened to because I'm too in love with this album. But I just need another album. It's their only album so far, so hopefully one day they will get together and do another album, because this is god tier black metal, if you ask me. Fucking incredible stuff. Alright, now, sticking with The Devil You Know and metalcore, because I was kind of rekindling stuff that I haven't listened to in a long time. And there's another artist, which is the end one, which I'll get to in a bit. But the other one that I've really been digging lately is an old school band that definitely not many people talk about, but they're still going strong and still banging albums. I'm talking about Unearthed, and this is their album from 2009, so it's like 12-year-old, entitled The March. Now, I got introduced to the band back, I think it was just after this album, with their one of their older albums called The Oncoming Storm. I believe it's the orange one. Yeah, absolutely fantastic metalcore album, very thrashy but very groovy and intense, really solid stuff. But yeah, as I started to make my way through their more modern stuff, and I got that album, then started checking out the more modern stuff, and then I started making my way back through the back catalogue. It's something I do quite a lot. This album came on, and it quickly became my favourite album of Unearthed, and I stuck it on like yesterday or the day before, and I was like, wow, why have I stopped listening to this album? Because this is an all-out relentless assault when it comes to metalcore. I mean, it kind of reminds us a little bit of a less melodic, more riffy August Burns Red, kind of along the sort of Messenger era, like that sort of intense style metalcore. But this, in my opinion, is a little bit more intense and riff heavy. I mean, when I put this on, and I think it's the second song, Heal the Shrine, came on in my car. Oh my god, I was captivated. I was just like, just gripping the steering that little bit harder. You know when a riff kicks in, when you're driving along and you just feel it and you just grab that steering wheel a little bit harder. Man, it was so hard not to headbang to that song. But in general, this album has some absolutely incredible tracks on here, and from beginning to end, it is a ripper, and it's made us want to go back through Unearth's discography and kind of like rekindle my love for that band. And I know one of my friends has recommended us, I think it was the album that followed this, 3, I can't even remember the second half of that title, but yeah, 3 something. Yeah, I need to check that out. But this one, man, I can't stop listening to it over the past couple of days. It is such a good album, and more people need to be catching on with Unearthed, because they are absolutely incredible. Old school metalcore, but still riff heavy, and has some very melodic stuff and some really tasty licks in there for good like melodic licks over, which kind of give it that kind of August Burns Red sort of feel. But man, it is intense. Man, it is so good. Check it out if you haven't already. Alright, next up we've got some blackened death metal, and this is an album that I do spin quite a lot, if I'm honest. It's typically, when it comes to blackened death metal, I always listen to this album because it always seems to make us head bang. And I'm talking about Sin Sanum with their debut album entitled Echoes of the Tortured. Yeah, this album came out back in 2016, and it's basically a supergroup containing members of now former member of Dragon Force, Fred, I can't pronounce his second name, Joey Jordison, formerly of Slipknot, Attila of Mayhem, and I think his name's Zach of Darth, and formerly of Chimera, coming together to create this new black and death metal project to wreak havoc on the world of black and death metal. Now, this album is not your stereotypical style of black and death metal, kind of like your Behemoths or your or even your Archgoats, or, you know, that war metal sort of thing. It's nothing like that. This is a different kettle of fish, if you ask me. Like, this is a more groovy style. The best comparison I would say to this band would maybe be along the same sort of lines of maybe some Belphegor in there. And I know Belphegor kind of sounds like Behemoth, but this is kind of sounds a little bit different. Anyway, so Belphegor here, it's kind of like groovy style of black and death metal with a lot of riffs in there. And this album, for me anyway, it's a standout in the genre, if you ask me. Like, it doesn't sound like a lot of the stuff, or a lot of the characters in the black and death metal sort of genre and realm, you could say. It really stands out in the crowd, and that's why I really enjoy this album. And I think Joey Jordison really comes out, it becomes more aggressive with his playing, like blast beats all hour and stuff like that, but still creating some groove and intensity in there just to like shake it up, make things sound quite interesting. And then the vocal performance on here, like the dynamics with the Attilas and oh no, sorry, it's not Zach, it's Sean. So you've got Sean on vocals, Attila on vocals, Frederick on guitar, bass and synth, Stefan, I think that's pronounced, on guitars, Hymoth on bass, and Joey Jordison on drums. And then you've got some guest spots on here as well. But yeah, honestly, throughout this entire album, it is such an enjoyable. I mean, you just need to hear one song in particular, and that is the 6th track, Army of Chaos. Yeah, that song, in my opinion, is an absolute ripper and an absolute jam to listen to. So if this sounds up your alley, then definitely give this. If you're a fan of any of the bands that I mentioned, then definitely give this album a shot. It is absolutely fantastic and very enjoyable album to listen to. Especially, it might even be a great start for you to get into the whole black and death metal sort of sound. Like, this could be a great starting point, but it'll still be a comeback album when you listen to it. It's like, you'll be coming back to it again and again. It's absolutely fantastic, if you ask me. Alright, and then we get to the final recommendation of this video. And this kind of started the wave for us listening to Devil You Know, Unearthed, and a smattering of other bands in OG metalcore that not many people listen to these days. I know those aren't exactly OG albums, but, you know. Anyway, but this was the album that started off, because this album, for me anyway, and this band is one of the most criminally, and I say it again, criminally underrated bands. And not many people talk about them these days. And when people do talk about them these days, they went, oh, I remember that band. And I'm like, well, why don't you talk about them now? Honestly, because I think this band is so underrated. And I'm talking about Shadows Fall, and I'm going to be talking about their album called Threads of Life. I've got this album on vinyl as well, and that's a stipulation to how much I enjoy this album. I mean, just from the first track, Redemption, when that kicks in, oh my dear God. Like, oh my God. From beginning to end, this is just an absolutely incredible album. It's kind of like got that kind of American metalcore sort of sound to it that was going back in those days, the likes of God Forbid, Darkest Hour, that sort of melodic death metal kind of influenced metalcore, maybe a bit of thrash metal in there. Like, a lot of this album, definitely some of the riffs kind of remind us of Testament in a way, like that riffy sort of style of thrash metal, not the you know, traditional style of thrash, you know, that, like, I know they've got some of that stuff, but like The Gathering, for example, those type of riffs, yeah, they're splattered all over this album just to give it that bit of intensity. And then the vocals on here are absolutely incredible, like so melodic, but the way they're delivered, they just sound so unique, but the lyrics absolutely incredible and captivating and make you want to sing along. Like, I've been singing Redemption all fucking week, like, oh, and Another Hero Lost, another amazing song. The Great Collapse, yeah, wow, just absolutely incredible album to listen to. If you want some great quality melodic metalcore to listen to, this is it. And I want people to leave some comments down below if you miss Shadows Fall and want them to do a reunion at some point in the upcoming future, because man, this, like their last album that they brought out, I can't remember what it's called, where they had the new logo and stuff. I really enjoyed that album, and I still listen to it a lot these days. But man, this album, absolutely incredible. And I think it's Retribution, I believe it's called, the album that was just before that one. Absolutely incredible as well. But this is always my go-to album when it comes to Shadows Fall. Absolutely incredible release, and you just need to hear it if you're into that metalcore and you're into the old school stuff. Definitely check it out. But yeah, there's 5 recommendations for you. I hope you've I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'm going to plan to do some more super metal recommendations. I've got a couple of black metal releases, not including those ones, to talk about these in an upcoming super metal recommendations, and a few smattering other of albums. But yeah, I'll see you until the next video, and remember, stay metal, and I'll see you later.